Hi, everyone. We're going to get started now. Thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to the Where Conservation and Organic Overlap Practical Tools for Your Farm webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared with you afterwards. And this webinar is made possible with support through the USDA Southeast Transition to Organic Partnership Program. My name is Lydia Shu. I'm a Farmer Services Program Specialist here at Georgia Organics. Georgia Organics is a statewide nonprofit serving local, sustainable, and organic farmers. Our Farmer Services team aims to uplift, connect, educate, and support Georgia farmers directly through one-on-one support, resource provision, educational events, and a wide array of programming. This suite of services is designed to help farmers build and maintain strong farm businesses and achieve farmer prosperity. Our speaker today is Elise Nowack, an organic conservation specialist for the Eastern United States. She works for Oregon Tilth and works under a partnership agreement with the Natural Resources Conservation Service. Her role is to train and support NRCS staff so they can better understand and support organic practicing producers that walk into an NRCS office. Today, she will be covering what programs NRCS has to offer organic growers and how to most effectively work with NRCS staff. And if you have any questions during the webinar, please use the Zoom raise hand function and we'll call on you, or you can utilize the Q&A function on your toolbar. We'll do our best to address your questions as they arise, or we'll save them for the end during the dedicated Q&A portion. And with that, I'll hand it over to Elise.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lydia. I really appreciate you inviting me here, and I'm excited to hang out with y'all today. So let me go ahead and get my screen share here, and we will go ahead and jump in. So, yeah, like Lydia said, my name is Elise Nowack. I'm an organic conservation specialist with Oregon Tilth, and yeah, my job is to be that bridge between NRCS and the organic community, so that NRCS can support y'all, and you can also get the support that you need from them. So, yeah, today we will be talking about conservation. It relates to organic production, what programs NRCS has, and the process of working with them. So we will go ahead and get started. And I always like to start off really broad and then kind of funnel down. So conservation at a very high level is the intentional care and stewardship of natural resources. To kind of get everyone on the same page here, what are some natural resources that we have on our farm? And feel free to come off mute or put it in the Q&A, whatever you prefer. And while y'all are typing, I just wanted to let you know that these slides will be shared after my presentation, so don't feel like you have to like rush and write down notes or anything like that. I have links throughout, and my contact info is on the last screen, so like if any questions come up after, please feel free to just email me. And I'm trying to see the chat. Water, forestry, soil. Yep, absolutely. And Hillary, I'm going to be crediting you for an analogy later here in this presentation, so I'm really glad to see it. I think I'm seeing the Q&A, but I might just be seeing the chat. So I'm not sure if anyone else is saying what natural resources we have, but that's okay. So the natural resources that NRCS, or the Natural Resources Conservation Service, likes to focus on are soil, water, air, plants, animals, and energy. You might hear the term SWAPA, and that just means that we're talking about all of the natural resources here. Right. So zooming in a little bit more, we have organic conservation. So this is focusing on our natural processes and practices to conserve natural resources. Organic is all about having as much of a closed system as we can and helping the natural cycle along. So if we're doing it right, this will This will in turn benefit our soil, our water, air, all of our natural resources. So this could look like rotating our crops, cover cropping, so there isn't any bare soil, using green manures, mulching, reducing our tillage, composting and cycling our nutrients, creating space for our pollinators, whether that's with hedgerows, we might be establishing some buffers. And practices like these not only benefit like our whole farm ecosystem, but it also boosts our yield and production as well. Right, so why organic conservation matters, right? It's not just about avoiding the chemicals, but it's about building that resilient regenerative system so it can kind of support itself. So if we are working and doing that conservation work, we could see improved soil health, so like more organic matter, which in turn means better nutrient cycling, better water retention, our soil structure is improved, water quality, so we have better water, we're reducing our runoff, we're buffering those waterways, better biodiversity, so providing like habitat for our pollinators, our beneficials, giving space for our native grasses and plants, and then also improve weather resilience. So like better tolerance to our drought, flooding, other extremes that we've been seeing. All of these can help buffer this a little bit. Right, so kind of zooming in even more onto Natural Resource Conservation Service, or NRCS. It started back during the Dust Bowl, and it started off as the Soil Conservation Service. So they were just focused on soil because in the Dust Bowl there was a huge soil erosion issue. And Hugh Hammond Bennett, who ended up being named the father of NRCS, he was a huge soil health advocate. He went around the country talking about different practices that we could use to save the soil and to make it better for growing. So fast forward to today, we now call it the Natural Resources Conservation Service instead of just focusing in on the soil. And NRCS offers free technical assistance and financial cost share programs for growers. So that technical assistance, it could look like doing resource assessments, designing practices to address resource concerns, and monitoring those resources, making sure that they're doing what they need to be doing. And they work with all different types of farms, whether that's urban, rural, small scale, transitioning, certified organic, whatever they can help. So you might hear this phrase, something along the lines of NRCS can't help you start a farm, but they can help you improve it by addressing those natural resource concerns. Hillary, this is where I'm crediting you. So this analogy is really what helped me understand how NRCS works. So I always like to bring it to folks that are newer to NRCS. So Hillary, you brought it with Jamie McGirt of Rafi to think about NRCS like going to the doctor. So you go to the doctor when you have an issue, right? And I always like to think about this like, okay, I'm going to go to the doctor because my head hurts every single day. That's my concern that I'm going for. I'm going to go, my head hurts every day. They're going to give me a treatment plan. And in that treatment plan, they're going to give me some treatments, right? They're going to say, drink more water, reduce your screen time, take some medicine. So all that is wrapped up in our treatment plan. They're going to be monitoring me. They might give me a little MyChart message. Hey, are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? Are you feeling better? Things like that until we have our follow-up visit sometime later. And I'll be like, yep, I drank more water, reduced my screen time, and I took this medicine. Now that symptom's gone. So how that relates to NRCS, the symptom is our resource concern, right? So we might be seeing that our plants are not yielding enough. We might have compaction. We might be seeing some erosion. So we're going to go to NRCS for a conservation plan. And in that plan, they're going to be giving us practices or activities that we need to implement to address those issues or those symptoms. They're going to follow up with us. They might text us, hey, how's it going? What's up? That's the project management piece. And then after a while, there will be a site inspection. So that is when they come back out to the farm, they're seeing, okay, did you do what you needed to do? How's the resource concerns? Are they getting better? Are they completely gone? And just really gauging from there. That's NRCS. And now we're gonna kind of look at how NRCS and organic relate. And sometimes people think that they're two different things doing two different goals, but really organic regulations align really well with what NRCS is trying to do. NRCS is prioritizing soil health, water conservation, biodiversity, all of these that are central to organic systems. When we look at the different missions, so NRCS, the mission is to protect natural resources versus organic is prioritizing the health of the soil, water, and ecosystems. So essentially doing the same thing, but going about it in different ways. So some different practices or different treatments that producers could do to meet the organic requirements include cover crops. We could be doing nutrient management, hedgerows, buffers, crop rotation, grazing management. All of these things are different options, right? And I always like to pull this little snippet from the Organic Farming Handbook. So the handbook has a lot of great information, but I always like to highlight this piece because on the left here, you'll see all of the organic standards and whatnot. And then on the right, it'll introduce different practices that NRCS has that producers could implement to meet these standards. So not to say like if you're trying to um, maintain and improve soil, water, woodlands, like you got to do all of these different practices. It's more so just say there are options out there. So I always like to just familiarize myself with these or tell farmers to familiarize themselves with different options that are out there. Just so you're kind of speaking the same language when you go to an NRCS office. Again, if there's a bunch of things here listed, and maybe you go in and you don't get any of these because the planner that you're working with is like, oh, actually, I'm seeing something different and might propose a different option. And that's okay too. Any questions? Or no, it's kind of a lot.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, does a farmer need to have an NRCS site inspection, in order to qualify for these practices or plans beforehand?
Yeah, so it depends on the field office, but generally the process is you go into an NRCS field office, you talk with them, you can say, I want to participate in one of these programs, and then they'll come out and walk the grounds, do a site inspection. Of course, it depends on bandwidth and different things like that, but ideally, yes, there would be a site inspection to help see if you're going to qualify for any of these practices.
And then in terms of timeline, I'm sure it
Mhm.
varies by office, but could farmers expect like a site inspection within a month or less than a month, or would you say it's generally longer than that?
It's really hard to tell, especially now with the reduced staff and whatnot. So it definitely depends on the field office. I couldn't even give you a timeline right now because I don't want to say
Mhm.
something and then it's like way off base.
Okay.
Thank you. What else? Oh, so got through all of that context. Now we're gonna just look at a few different conservation programs that could support you. So the most popular program for NRCS is EQIP, or the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. Has anyone heard of EQIP? You can do like a thumbs up or something if you've heard of it. Got a few people, yeah. Awesome. I always like to think of EQIP as like the gateway to NRCS. So it is the first level of conservation or like 101. So this program, it provides technical and financial assistance to help address any natural resource concerns that are on the farm. Staff will work one-on-one with you, develop a plan, and generally that plan will include practices that are either like structural, vegetative, or management practices, similar to the practices we saw a few slides back. So under EQIP, each practice has a set cost that is associated with it. So after you've implemented the practice, you'll be reimbursed that amount, that set amount. Um, and it might not always cover the full cost of doing that practice, but that's more so why it's framed as like a cost share program. So you're sharing that cost with NRCS. The exception here is if you qualify as a historically underserved producer. So if you qualify, you can get up to 50% of that set cost up front to help you do that work. And then after that site inspection, that final site inspection where they made sure, okay, you did everything that you needed to do, you will get the other half of that payment. And we'll take a look at who qualifies as historically underserved. So through NRCS, there are a few identities that are identified as historically underserved. That includes our veterans, beginning farmers. So if you've been farming for less than 10 years, socially disadvantaged. So you're part of a group that has been prejudiced because of their identity. You would be historically underserved. The note here, non-gender. So if you identify as a woman, this is not an identity that is historically underserved through NRCS. Through different agencies, potentially, but not here. And then limited resource farmers. So this is if you make under a certain amount, a few other financial details. It's a little bit harder to sum up in a PowerPoint. So I just put a link here to see if you qualify. So not only do you get that 50% advance payment through EQIP, but you might also be able to get better payment rates for those practices. So when you're working with NRCS, it's always good to make sure that the planner that you're working with knows if you want that advance payment and that you qualify as historically underserved so you can get those better payment rates. I always like to say communication is key with NRCS, regardless of what the topic is. Okay, so that's EQIP. Now we're pivoting over to Conservation Stewardship Program or CSP. And so this is going to be our next level of conservation. Got through the 101, now we're looking at 201. And the main point of this program is just building on existing conservation efforts to continue strengthening your operation. So you may never have worked with NRCS before, but you can still qualify for CSP if you have been doing that conservation work. It is a bit more work, I will say, but it does also have better payment rates. So contracts have a minimum of $4,000 now. But again, it's going to be a lot of work, but also really great benefits as well. So you can see better crop productivity, better wildlife habitat, increased resilience to weather extremes, and a lot of organic farms qualify for CSP, even if y'all have never worked with NRCS before. Just something to keep in mind. So we got EQIP, we got CSP, and then under both of those, we have a new program called RPP, or the Regenerative Agriculture Pilot Program. It's been big in the news. Has anyone heard about it, seen anything about it? Maybe thumbs up or no reason not. So it is new. They just rolled it out this January, and it is available under EQIP and CSP. So this is going to be a whole farm assessment, and it evaluates every resource concern that's on the farm. So if you're looking to just like get a high tunnel or something, this might not be the program for you. The focus here is going to be on soil health and water management, and this is going to be a longer commitment. So these are 5-year contracts. And soil testing is required that first and last year to see how soil health has improved. Just like with EQIP and CSP, it does provide financial and technical assistance. Um, and to qualify for our PP, you have to be implementing at least one designated practice. So there's like 15 practices that they've designated as RPP eligible practices, but I've just pulled out a few here. So like we got crop rotation, cover crop, mulching, nutrient management, grazing management, no-till. Um, and I just pulled these ones out because these are the ones that we're seeing the most with our organic growers. It is really interesting program. I'm excited to see how this first year of it goes. But so we got those 3 programs. And then I also wanted to talk about technical service providers or TSPs. So if you still want to work with NRCS, but you would like technical assistance from an outside source, technical service provider might be a better option for you. So you still get the financials from NRCS. They provide that money to go and hire TSP. In TSPs, they are certified by NRCS in different activities. So all those practices we were seeing, those are treatments, so are activities. They're just a little bit different on who provides that assistance. So the 2 that I really wanted to highlight here are Conservation Planning Activity 138, Conservation Plan Supporting Organic Transition, and then Design and Implementation Activity DIA 140, Transition to Organic Design. Both of these are planned by TSPs, but they are not required to certify. And what I mean by that is here in North Carolina, where I'm based, a lot of folks will get a CPA 138 and never go on to get their organic certification. They just want to transition their practices, their management style to be more organically aligned. So you don't need to have organic certification as an end goal if you are doing one of these activities. And it's fine if you do. So, but people like to work with TSPs because they get more like one-on-one assistance, and it provides more organic expertise if that's something that you're looking for. And I've linked how to find a TSP here as well because NRCS cannot recommend a TSP.
And Elise, can you clarify do
Yeah.
you need to have a TSP in order to do the CPA 138 or like certain plans? Or
Yeah, so the order of operations would be going to NRCS, talking through what your goals are, and then if you decide I want to do one of these 2 activities, the CPA 138 or DIA 140, then you would have to go find a TSP. And then once you get your contract, you can hire the TSP and then all that work can be done. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
yes, so the TSP is a required component to
Yes.
complete this plan. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, so NRCS staff cannot do these activities.
Okay. Can you kind of explain what is like that it's that those skills are outsourced to like third party technical service providers instead of like kept in-house in like NRCS?
Yeah, so the reason that these are outsourced, one, to provide a little bit or take a little bit off of NRCS planners' plates. So obviously they're doing a lot. They're working with a lot of different growers. So this is a way to kind of outsource that. And then also that organic expertise, specifically with these ones. So some field offices, they might not have anyone that's comfortable working with organic producers, and that's totally fine. So just having that like extra expertise available. And with all like CPAs or DIAs, there's just different expertise that's available out there that can be outsourced.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So um, I'm gonna touch a little bit more on these two activities, but not gonna go too much into it. But CPA 138, this is like the planning stages of it all. Um, There's nothing, there's no on the ground work that's happening with the CPA 138. It is just the planning stages. So the TSP will come out, do that whole farm assessment, walk the grounds, look at the resource concerns, and recommend practices to address those concerns. So this could also include resource concerns that may not have come up yet. If you're like really in the beginning stages of transitioning, but essentially they're just like giving you a roadmap, but they're not driving with you, if that makes sense. So, goal of this is just to like support you in managing your natural resources while you're trying to meet those organic requirements by giving you a plan and being like, okay, you can go do this now. And that's why it's generally paired with a DIA 40, because this is where that TSP is driving with. They're taking all the practices that were identified in that whole farm assessment, either in a CPA 38 or with previous work with NRCS, and they're providing more in-depth technical assistance here. And really, this is just to address those resource concerns that specifically come during transition and giving you concrete solutions here. Alrighty, so lots of program stuff, and you might be like very overwhelmed. You might be wondering, okay, which one is right for me? The good news is there's only one application in the planner. Excuse me,
I'll just take this moment to remind everyone that if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, or come off mute at any time, and ask away.
I'm back. Thank you so much for that, Lydia. I just had a tickle in my throat that I had to take care of. Alrighty, so there's only one application, which is new, and the planner decides which program is right for you. And
Your
that's
video is still off, Elise, FYI.
no worries. I think I'm just gonna keep it off. I'm very
Okay.
tired.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, yes, the planner will work with you to figure out which program is right for you. So, with that, any questions so far? I'm getting into the last little bit here. So say you decide, okay, yes, I do want to work with NRCS. Um, and now you're trying to figure out what are the first steps here. So I always like to recommend getting familiar with what natural resource concerns are under. And this is a really cool tool, the conservation concerns tool. It's on the USDA website, and you can click into each of these resources, and it will guide you through, okay, what resource concerns might be present on your farm. And again, it's just to get you a bit more familiar with like the language. That way you and the planner can be on the same page. It's optional, but it's just always something that I recommend. So we're doing that maybe. But then if you have never worked with USDA agencies before, please, please, please stop by the Farm Service Agency office to get a farm record because you're going to need that if you want to apply for any NRCS financial programs. To get that, you might need your like property deed or property lease, tax ID, your ID, all these legal documents to be like, yes, I have control of this land. Yes, this is me, blah, blah, blah. And so we stop by FSA, we get our farm record. Now it's time to pop on over to NRCS. And the good news is that they're usually in the same building, if not the same exact office. So I did put a link here to help you locate the local NRCS office in case you're not familiar with it. So we have found the NRCS office, we got our farm record, we're ready. Go on ahead and submit your application because they are accepted all year round. The thing about that is while these applications are accepted all year round, there are deadlines or cutoff dates to evaluate these applications for funding. This year, they decided to do one national deadline, so that was January 15th. I'm not sure if they're going to keep the same national deadline for next year, but I'm definitely keeping my ears out. And if I hear anything, I'll let Lydia know so she can email you all. But yeah, so get your application in as soon as you know you want to work with NRCS because it is going to be a lengthy process. If you apply now, it will be held until that next deadline. And then from there, applications will be ranked into different pools. So states will have different categories or different pools where they group applications together, and it can be very, very competitive. So these applications are ranked, and the highest scoring application receives a contract offer first. And so it's very competitive, and we'll get into that here. But one thing that I did want to note is applications do not automatically roll over anymore. That is a big change. It used to be if you did not get approved, then your application would just roll over to the next one. That's not the case anymore. So you always want to make sure that you're keeping in contact with NRCS and understanding, okay, what are the next steps for me? How can I move this along? Alrighty, so ranking. And this is how it should go. I'm not going to say that this is how it goes every time. But so we go in, we talk to NRCS, we submit that application, then we should have a planner come out to our operation, walk the grounds, evaluate those resource concerns, and really just like get to know you, goals, what's up. Assessment tools might be used to identify some resource concerns. There's a lot of great technology that NRCS uses to determine, okay, is this a resource concern or what's going on there? From there, applicable practices will be identified and recommended to address these resource concerns. And all of that is included in your application, and it affects how your application ranks. So conservation work that results in greater environmental benefit will be ranked higher. And I always feel like that's important to note because if you're just going in there for like a high tunnel or something, it's not doing a lot like beyond your farm. So it might not get ranked as high as some other ones, right? So they come out, they fill in that application, your application gets ranked and get approved. Amazing. You go in, you sign a contract, NRCS that provides standards and specifications. You would implement the practices according to the directions that are given to you. And then after all that, NRCS comes back out and sees what's been done, make sure they've been implemented correctly, make sure that the resource concern is on its way to being gone and being addressed. And from there, the reimbursement is paid out. And then you can decide, okay, do I want to continue working with NRCS? And just go from there. That's most of the process at a very, very high level. And then I included at the end here just some different resources and tools. And I also have my contact information if you have really specific questions or need any help or yeah, so I will take any questions then.
Thank you so much, Elise.
Of course.
Um, I have a couple questions.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'll warm up the crowd. Going back to one of the slides you just had, can you apply for, so you can apply for multiple practices in one application. So is that recommended, so that like a farmer's application is more likely to be ranked higher if you include multiple practices that'll have more environmental benefit, instead of just applying for, like you said, just one high tunnel. Is there a strategy behind that?
Yeah, so I always say go with, and this is within reason, go with what your planner is recommending. If they're saying, hey, I think we should do 5 practices versus 3, they're probably saying that for a reason. And unless you have no plans on implementing those practices and you don't want to do that work, then go with the 3. But go with the 5 if that's what you want to do, because you will share that cost. You will be ranked probably higher as long as there's nothing like funky with the system. But yeah.
Um, And follow-up question to that then too. I guess because farmers have to pay those costs up front and then it's a cost share to be reimbursed, is that something, I guess I don't know what the difference usually is between what the cost share is versus like what it actually costs to implement one of these practices. So would that be a concern as well, putting 3 versus 5 practices?
Absolutely, yeah. So if that is something that is a concern, a financial concern, and you're not able to get that advance payment, that is definitely something to consider and maybe scale it back to those 3 practices, especially in this economy in this time. We got to do what's best for your operation, especially because some of these practices, the cost might not cover the full um, cost of implementing it, and it might be like a little bit off, but it also might be way off. So you really just have to work with your planner and figure out, okay, is this something that's viable for me or not?
And I'll just keep asking you questions unless somebody raises their hand. Um, if the contract, the payment rate is more, like if a farmer doesn't fully utilize those funds, do they have to send receipts or do they have to then reimburse NRCS for any unused funds? Or is it kind of just like the cost share is the cost share is the cost share?
The cost share is the cost share. There's no
Okay.
receipts or anything like that. It used to be that way, but not anymore.
Okay. And in terms of the payment rates for, are each practices, are there different payment rates for the practices and are those rates publicly available on
Yes,
NRCS website? Okay. Does it
I'll
change
find that
much?
for you.
Okay. Do they change year to year or are they usually pretty consistent?
They will sometimes change like a little bit year to year. And each state has different payment rates.
Okay.
They did recently change it, so every county in the state has the same payment rates. But yeah, they generally will tweak them year to year, and it also depends on if you're looking at equip versus CSP versus historically underserved. So
Mhm.
yeah, I what I just sent in the chat, you can go through, scroll down, select your state, your county, and if you're looking for an equip, because you've never worked with NRCS before, you just kind of want to like, dip your toe in. Select it's like a funky name, but it does say equip in there. And you can scroll down to whatever practice you are interested in. But it is important to note that like we don't always want to go into NRCS like I want this practice and like be really adamant about that. Of course, advocate for yourself, but find that balance and that compromise of working with them.
Okay. And then how long are the equip contracts usually? Is it 2 years?
It's a year.
A 1 year? Okay.
Mhm.
Does anybody else have any questions? Because I have more. Okay, I'm gonna keep asking you questions then. Since applications don't roll over anymore, can farmers still submit the same application the next year, just like copy and paste? Or is it more beneficial if they like go back to their planner and be like, why can the planner tell them why their application wasn't accepted? I guess this is multi-part. Can the planner tell them if why?
I believe so, but I'm not 100% certain that the planner can tell them why. Or I know that they can like suggest
Hmm.
edits.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm not sure if they can exactly tell them why. And then what was the other part?
Since the applications don't roll over, can farmers just still just submit the same exact application?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes. So they can do that. And I believe there is also a process where like the NRCS will send you a letter, hey, your application was denied. Do you want it to roll over? And then you have to have that action of, yes, I do want it to roll
Okay. Gotcha. And then in terms of obviously there are environmental benefits of just implementing conservation practices without NRCS. But is truly like the benefit of going through NRCS, um, having the planner and having, is it most beneficial if a farmer is able to get an equip contract so they can get those financial incentives? Or are there like any other like non-financial incentives that would encourage a farmer to utilize NRCS?
Yeah, so I think having that technical expertise is really helpful, and also just connecting with uh, other ag professionals with it, because it, NRCS planners, they see a lot, right? So being able to connect with them, and then they might be able to connect you with other firms in the industry, I think that is very beneficial.
And okay, I'll just keep asking you questions. I have another question. If a farmer has a specific practice in mind that they really want to do, can they start working on it before they have an equip contract?
Yeah, so it is super important that any work, like if you're, yeah, really want to do cover crops and you know where to find like the what implementation guide and like all that good stuff, don't start working on it until you have that contract in place because you will not be paid out for that work. You always want to make sure that you have signed on the dotted line and gotten all that done and taken care of first.
Okay. So does that mean like if a farm already has cover, like is already utilizing cover crops, but maybe not on their whole farm, just like on a field or two, um, and then they're applying for practices to expand their cover cropping, that they would still be able to like have those costs of the additional fields
Yeah,
covered. Okay. Okay. But you're saying like if somebody's trying to install a well, they really shouldn't start any part of the project until they have the contract
yeah,
signed. Okay.
exactly.
Okay. Um, and you said NRCS can't recommend a TSP to farmers?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
And in the slides they have I linked to the TSP registry. So they you can go through and search in your state and then whatever activity you want. So you can look up 138 and you'll see any TSP that is certified in your state in that practice.
Okay. Gotcha. Is that because due to like conflict of interest with
Yeah,
NRCS? Okay. Um, I'm assuming NRCS staff cannot also serve as TSPs then.
that's great. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Um, and then When should a farmer go to their NRCS office if they know they want to work with them?
Yesterday, but tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Hillary, I see your question. Are there TSPs available through Georgia Organics? There are not. We do not offer that service. I think the closest, I mean, Elise, you can correct me if I'm wrong as well. You're in the Carolinas. CFSA, the Carolina Farm Stewardship Association, does offer TSP services. And yeah, I can also send the link that Elise has in the slides of finding the TSP locator as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I believe CFSA has TSPs that are certified for Georgia, but I will double check here.
Okay,
And I will also just send that link here in the chat.
perfect. Thank you. So yeah, about the TSPs too. So the TSP has to get certified, like get trained and certified in certain plans. So if you wanted to work with a TSP on like two different plans, you would likely have to work with two different TSPs unless they were trained on multiple. Okay.
Yes, and some of them aren't. There's a lot of overlap between like the organic activities and like the soil health activities, but
Mhm.
not always.
Okay. All right, who can I work with to become Hillary asked who can I work with to become certified as a TSP?
Yeah, good question. So the TSP branch through NRCS is going to be the first stop there. And Peter Hoagland is the Southeast region person. So I can put his information in the chat. Um, and also that link that I put in there already for the TSPs, that is going to be the best way to really start that process. But I will put Peter's information in the chat.
And so that sounds like essentially anybody can become trained to become a TSP as long as they have the skill set and go through
Yes,
the
there are
certification.
different ways to achieve TSP certification depending on what activity you're looking for. So like for the organic 138, you need to be like have organic farming experience or work experience. There's also a educational path, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but there are a couple different ways to achieve that certification. And then there are courses that you have to take that NRCS offers.
And then does the TSP then choose which states they want to work with?
Mhm.
Okay, gotcha.
And then they have to submit a sample plan for each state and get approved from there.
A sample plan as like in
Like
part as
the,
part of their certification.
yes.
Okay, so that they can demonstrate they know the
Mhm.
natural resources concerns of those states in those regions. Okay, gotcha. And are there financial benefits to becoming a TSP? Like, are there payments through NRCS that go? Yeah,
Yeah, so it depends on what you charge, really, because they're just like with the practices that there are set costs, activities also have set costs. So it's good to look up those costs if you are a TSP and then charge accordingly.
gotcha. Okay. And so CFSA has a person who is a TSP. So that's like through an organization, but individuals can also become TSPs without being linked to an organization.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions from the room?
Can you hear me? Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
One of the first slides, I didn't expect that. It referred to some work that Jamie and I had done because we've gone around the country and done presentations on NRCS and some of the programs. If I could just make a suggestion, I think before the NRCS person comes out, you really need to familiarize yourself with what the practices are. I don't think it's necessarily the responsibility of the person who's coming out from NRCS to tell you what practices are appropriate for your land. So Jamie and I call it the walk and talk, or, that's a term that I coined. Um, you have to be able to tell, because in some cases, the person who's coming out, because they have such a breadth of different programs that they have to address, and there's so many practices and resources associated with that, sometimes they don't know all of the different practices. So you have to know that you want a pollinator strip. You have to be able to speak to the fact that you're doing low till or no till. You have to be able to speak to the fact that you want to do agroforestry, or you want to do cover crops. So I think in order to be transparent, and hopefully that's helpful to people on the line, you have to know these things. It's not the responsibility of the agent who's coming out to tell you what is appropriate for your land. So that would be my first. I don't know what Elise thinks of that, but that's how Jamie and I have taught these courses when we've gone around the country. Again, I had not planned to speak up, but just as it's such a small group, I wanted to offer that tip. The other thing that I would say, you said something about you would not get paid if you're doing the resources before you get approved to do the resources. And that is very true. But I would say that your application is strengthened if you're doing the practice that you say you want to do, if that makes sense. So if I say that I'm interested in pollinator strips, I would say plant a pollinator strip. That's like a $5 bag from Lowe's, right? To say that, and it shows that you're pollinating your trees, or if that's the case, if that makes sense. So I know it seems almost counterintuitive, but when I teach these classes, I tell people to be able to, number one, know what you want to do, and to demonstrate that you are doing some of what you say you want to do in the future. Does that make sense? So if you say you want to do no-till or low-till, or you want to do cover crops, then I would say plant cover crops. So in preparation for next year's application, those are things that you should be doing now. That's my sense. I mean, I've been relatively successful in the application process, and that's really been my strategy. And that's what we've really taught when we have these classes, and people have been successful in taking it from that vantage point.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for speaking up, Hillary, and for also having these classes, because they are so important, and I've seen the impact that you've had on folks. So thank you so much for that. And I think you make really great points, like model what you want, do it maybe like on that smaller scale, like with that pollinator habitat you were saying, like $5, and just get it done. That way you can show, yes, I can do this. Let me do it on a bigger scale. And yes, being able to familiarize yourself with the resource concerns, with the practices, and being able to have that like one-to-one conversation, if you will, because NRCS, they do so much. And you're right that the planner, it could be overwhelmed or just not thinking about specific things. So making sure that you have your goals and what you really want out of the NRCS help in that conversation and making that clear.
Right. Yeah, if I could say one more thing, I promise this will be the last thing, because, particularly with the new program, so there's CSP and then there's a new regenerative program. And one of the questions that we always get is, can you do more than one program, and can you do more than one program on the application? And that's where it gets interesting. So for my first few years, I was told that I could not do more than one program on the application, even though we say there's one application, if this makes sense. But I went ahead, and after 2 years of just trying to be compliant, I just went ahead and did my own research and find out you can indeed be in more than one program. So you can do you can do EQIP, and you can do CSP, and now you can do the regenerative program, but you cannot duplicate. You cannot be doing the same practices across programs. So if there were practices that you did under EQIP and then, which may be high tunnels, or it may be irrigation. You can't do that under CSP, but CSP does have some programs that may overlap with what may be equipped. And then the new regenerative program may overlap with some of the things that are in CSP. So you cannot duplicate practices, but you can apply for more than one program. And when you do that equip application, when you do the NRCS application, you should really list what program, what acronym, and which practices under that program you want to do. Does that make sense? So under CSP, you should list which practices you're going to do. Under the regenerative program, you should list which practices you want to do. Under equip, you should list what you're applying for, but you cannot duplicate across practices, across programs. Does that help at all? I hope.
Yeah, no, that is very, very helpful, especially making it clear there's no duplication there. So thank you for that.
Okay, I promise that's the last thing I'll say. Okay, thank you.
No, we appreciate your insight. It's very, very helpful because I can provide one perspective, but I appreciate having that other perspective as someone who has worked with NRCS on the other side. So thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. You did a great job. I appreciate you taking time. This is something, it took me listening to someone like you over and over again before I could figure it out. It took me literally 2 years to figure out the program. So
it's complicated. And so anything that we can do to decomplicate it, and you're doing the good work for it. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'm gonna jump in here because we're a little bit past the top of the hour. But yeah, I just wanted to wrap things up. And thank you so much, Elise, for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us today. And also thank you all for in the room for engaging and participating in today's webinar. As we wrap up, I just wanted to let everyone know about some other upcoming events that we have. So in late June, the date is still TBD. We're hosting an Ask an Organic Farmer webinar with Grateful Pastures, where farmers can learn from and ask experienced farmers any and all your questions about organic poultry production. And also this spring and summer, Georgia Organics is hosting Consider This Farmer Field Day series with our state partners across the state of Georgia, and each field day will cover a different organic farming topic. The next field day is on May 21st at Comfort Farms in Milledgeville, Georgia. There are only 2 days left to register, and all the field days are free and would be a great way for you to learn in a hands-on in the field environment. So just wanted to plug those 2 events. As we wrap up, thank you guys so much for staying a little bit past 5, and thank you, Elise, again. I'll share the links to the upcoming events, the webinar recording, and the presentation with you all shortly this week.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Thank you,
Thank
Lydia.
you, guys.
Thanks, y'all.
Have a
Take
good
care.
evening.
Thank you so much, Elise.
Bye.